We all go a little mad sometimes.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
They're here.
Alright, I mean, well, we are recording now, so.
We are recording.
That needs to be loud.
It works the same as the last thing.
I think it's good enough. I think we should have a different theme for like each month of like the pod for the slab. I think it's a good idea.
Do you want to wait 6 weeks a month for Gemma to make us a fucking theme?
We love you, Gemma.
I do too. That side didn't mean anything. I just said.
Well, welcome to the slab.
Yeah. So B movies, Grindhouse, Exploitation, all that good stuff.
We have a very good topic today. Unfortunately, someone didn't choose Lovecraft this month again. So
actually,
it's okay.
somebody lost out on a probability test, aka fucking heads or tails, and lost, and then tried to do a 2 out of 3 for it, which completely ruins the 50-50 aspect of a heads or tails. God.
Alright, well, look, here it is.
The thing is, here's the thing.
Oh, if you can hear a cat purring in the background, it's the famous return of Jonesy.
The third official member of They're Here.
Yeah. The one and the only. The cat that died in Alien has returned to haunt everybody, you know?
Been here since the beginning.
Since forever. So yeah, we are about to prod, probe, and postulate a topic here.
Yes.
And we had a discussion earlier.
Do you want to probe and plug your fucking iPad in?
Okay. Right.
It's on 20%.
It's okay. It's an iPad. It'll be alright.
I mean, look at the top of this fucking thing. I don't know.
Oh my god. Can you not? So, I had a talk about this to you earlier, and I was researching this topic a little bit more, and I was trying to get as much information as I could based in and around the selection of B movies. And I very quickly realized that there is the connection, as B movies are, I want to say it can be either be a cousin or a descendant of exploitation film in cinema.
I think one is born out of the other, though.
Yeah, that's
like exploitation comes out of B.
I would disagree, because I only see exploitation coming first historically, and then the process of B movies being the descendant. It came after.
I don't think so, because things like King Kong and them.
Okay, well, show me the receipts.
I will, if you let me speak. And things like King Kong, also you'll see on the first post of this, for this week, that some of these movies are very much so definitely B movies. I think exploitation I don't think exploitation could have existed as early as like King Kong and shit like that, because of things like the Hays Code, or because of like censorship. Because I think exploitation, to me, when I think exploitation, and these two are very, very definitely linked. Like, we can't talk about one without the other. Mm-hmm. But when I think exploitation, I think like rape, murder, revenge,
sex,
violence, all that kind of stuff, all that good ultra-violence, the good in-out.
Ultra-violence.
But yeah, I think like, yeah, you can't have one without the other. Yeah. But I think B movies are very much so, like you said, like kind of like the baby cousin of horror movies / just like a subgenre, you know. We have like
of everything, really.
Them, because like B movie to me seems kind of like the perfect mix of like horror and sci-fi. So something like them, or King Kong, or Godzilla, or
Rocky Horror,
shit like that. Yeah, you know. Basically, it's just like the idea of like a cult movie, not a movie with cults in it, but a movie that's like kind of supposed to be kind of lame. Yeah. Like typically kind of, it's supposed to be kind of lame and shitty.
Well, I suppose we should probably start with how you would define B movie. Mm-hmm. So Could you give your definition or how you would define it?
It's kind of like, I look at it in the same way as like celebrities, where there's like A-list celebrities and then there's like B-list celebrities, where it's like, if you know, you know. You know what I mean? I'm not expecting everybody who knows like even something small about horror to know about them, or to know about like Invaders from Mars, or like Ed Wood. Exactly.
Yes.
Literally
John
took the words out of my mouth. Exactly. And then like, yeah, you kind of progress on to like, yeah, John Waters. John Waters to me is kind of like the like,
it's kind of the penultimate kind of like B-movie exploitative.
Yeah, even
kind
his
of era.
most successful movie, Hairspray, is still very much so a B movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's got Divine playing Tracy Turnblight's mom, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? That was also my introduction to Divine. Thanks,
I
Mom.
guess for me, a B movie would be literally just a low budget film of inferior quality made for use as a supporting feature in a cinema program, because historically
Did you get that offline?
kind of, yeah,
Oh my
that's the
god.
kind of Wikipedia definition, and I would also agree with it, specifically because its original usage, like during like Hollywood's golden age, was.
So when are you
their-
defining that as? Like 30s to 60s?
Yeah, 30s to 60s.
Yeah.
Very much like after the Gothic period of the Universal movie monsters.
Yeah.
Very much like the sci-fi
The studio
classics,
age.
the studio age.
Yeah.
It's more precisely identified because in the 1920s, like, just this is before Dracula and things like that, people became, bored of, a train approaching a station,
Yeah.
or, people were more so interested in a woman undressing or a kiss,
Yeah.
a fight, or even a murder. Like, do you remember that very old black and white, like, I think it's like a 10-second film of, it's a beheading, and
yeah.
it, as the axe goes down, it cuts to obviously a dummy, and the head comes off, and people were ecstatic with
Gonna
that.
go see a
They were
naked
like,
chick get murdered
"Oh
at the
my
Nickelodeon."
God," and
Yeah.
it caused excitement among literally the first horror fans. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, it caused, because right up until that point, everything was a romanticism kind of aspect.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is before the Universal monsters came in, and then afterwards people were just kind of grasping for more because you had a younger generation who were growing up with that. And I know that Thomas Edison Studios, so there was no Universal, there was no Paramount, there was nothing. Just before that was the Thomas Edison Studios, which is essentially just a literal rolling camera.
That's what I was gonna say. Like pre all that, it was kind of like film wasn't, again pronouncing the U in film. It wasn't even kind of like what it is now, where it's like entertainment. It's like new tech.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like going to see like like a display of new technology. Whether you go to like the Nickelodeon, you have your little thing and you see like a little rotoscope or whatever, you know, or whether you go to like a cinema, it wasn't like, let's go see a movie, because that just wasn't
and
a
usually
fucking
they
thing
were
yet,
just
you know?
kind of those kind of informative things about like how
those silent movies,
like how a spider weaves a web, or or how
flying across the moon or whatever.
Exactly,
you know?
yeah, things like that, or like, like I said, like a train coming into the station, or things like that.
And these are all pre-Hays Code, so we get a lot of, like, there was no idea of like, oh shit, we gotta censor this, because I don't think people realized that it was gonna be so widespread and become kind of like, I think like even still the primary like form of entertainment for the world, because it's kind of like the natural evolution to like theater and stuff, because that's what like film and a movie is basically just theater in 3D. You know what I mean?
True. The sort of the 1913 film is what comes to mind. This is what sort of started the whole theme of exploitative kind of things. So the term white woman slavery was a term coined by the Yellow Press, and they were basically just these people who like to like blow up like celebrities and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So they fabricated the term, and it's not based on any evidence whatsoever, yet this deeply disturbed New York audiences, and it was called They Who Traffic in Souls. And it was essentially about what was it?
Trash.
We got the soundboard, girl. And it was basically it was a short film. It was only about like 5 minutes long, and it was essentially about the white woman, quote unquote, being the slave in
they were white women
in the kitchen,
Yeah.
to the family, to the house,
Yeah.
and things like that. And then they sort of moved into the more serious tone, which was by the end of it, it was sex trafficking women. And people were, again, like at the time, this was deeply unfounded. It was literally just pulled out of thin air. And what they said was it just deeply, deeply fucked up all the New York society at the time. They couldn't believe this shit was going on behind closed doors.
Well, that's the thing, like pre-Hays Code, you could just kind of make whatever the fuck you wanted
Anything
to.
you wanted.
Like if you had access to the ability to screen a movie, you could just make whatever you wanted to. And I think that there is kind of this like weird like misconception of Hollywood that even when Hays Code was there, that Hollywood was like very innocent. And it's like, well, no, it's like, as we kind of see in society now, that it's like the further you like limit something, the more they're gonna do
push
it
against
secretly.
it. Yeah,
exactly. You know, that's where we get like snuff films and you know, like porn theaters and stuff like that. Where I think there's those two brothers that opened a porn theater in like San Francisco, and people really tried to like kaput that shit. And it was like, well, no, like it makes a lot of fucking money. There's obviously like it has a grab to it. People want to see this, you know. It's
they
like we're not
towards it. Yeah.
exactly. We're not like demoralizing society by like showing what actually already happens in real life. You know what I mean? It's like showing sex on screen, kind of opens up the idea of like, well, maybe let's talk about sex.
Yeah.
You know? And then you get like the 60s and 70s, like the sexual revolution.
The emancipation of women, the pill, the black rights
straight
movement,
up porn theaters
yeah.
on like everywhere, you know. What is it? You see them old pictures in New York City, like Times Square, and it's just porn theater. Even in fucking American Werewolf in London, we see like he's in a porn theater. That's like where the whole thing goes down, you know. There's one of them actually on my way to work.
Really?
Yeah, it's open 7 days a week until 3 a.m. It's called like Pleasure Dome or some shit like that. It's on Thomas Street.
I know that the Hays Code, it was mainly due to it was set up by John Hayes, who is now it wasn't named after him specifically but just specifically because it kind of put this kind of glamour over everything, and it pushed kind of high society into sort of hiding there's behind closed doors that kind of fucked up nature.
Yeah.
So
we don't have sex, but we have children.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
It makes no fucking sense.
They like it just made me thinking of like think of all the Christians and their sort of how great they are and how they build themselves up to be these virtuous,
they make great firewood.
Virtuous people, and yet behind the doors they're behind closed doors they're like the most weirdest sexual deviants. But that's
the repression thing. It's
exactly.
the more you feel like, oh shit, I can't do this, or people are going to ostracize me if I'm found doing this. Let me make it secretive.
Yeah.
You know, and even then, it's like you have to like go out in public. Like unless you were like rich, you couldn't just like you couldn't really be a film buff because you also couldn't own movies really.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you had a reel, that was probably like the reel. Like
yeah.
if this film gets destroyed, it's gone. Like I think that's like what it was for Nosferatu. It's like the only reason Nosferatu survived is because people pirated it so heavily, you know.
True.
And like that movie was never supposed to be seen. Like there's no reason we should be able to watch Nosferatu in perfect definition on YouTube now for free, but like we can, you know. And that's all because of, okay, fuck this, I want to have this. Like let it be like secret, you know. And that was all done like under the mat. Yeah,
because with the Hays Code, I mean, like they banned all allusions to sensual nudity, like even silhouettes. So even like a silhouette of a woman's body was banned on screen.
Yeah.
Sexual hygiene or even education about STDs was banned. Mixed race marriages were also banned. And
in real life too.
In real life. Poking fun of clergymen, nationalism or religion was all no-nos under the 37 rules, or quote unquote they called them guidelines at the time.
Yeah.
There were rules.
It's like the good guy always has to win.
We actually talked about this
has to end up with the hero. I think we talked
we talked about in Camp Notes on Horror.
Oh yeah.
We spoke about how the Hays Code just kind of set us back about 50 years in cinema. It kind of fucked us up really.
Yeah.
We did get, however, the golden ages of horror, at least at the start, which was Freaks, which is a famous B movie.
Todd Browning, famous gay.
Famous B movie. B Movie Gold, and
Yeah.
it was done by MGM because they had only just started up, and it was held in secret theaters for over 10 years.
There was such a big uproar about that movie, even the filming of it. Like people
Because
in
it
the
was
MGM.
exploitation. It was.
I know it straight up is exploitation. It's like picking a theme, and that's also a thing I've kind of like heard thrown around about exploitation movies is that like they're kind of very theme central. Like we're gonna pick one topic and base the whole movie around that. So it's freaks. We're just gonna have a movie about freaks doing freak shit, you know. But there was like huge uproar, like in the MGM like commissary of like all the other quote unquote normal actors being like, "Why the fuck are they eating with us?" You know. And Todd Browning kicked up a big thing of like, well, they're fucking actors. They're in my fucking movie, you know. Also, yeah, like I said a second ago, like Todd Browning, like famous gay director, kind of was like. I think championing these quote unquote freaks as a kind of like prerequisite of like, don't be fucking rude to people that are like different than you. Don't be a fucking asshole, you know? Plus, I'm about to drop one of the most famous movies of all time in the next couple of years, bro. Or no, I don't think Todd Browning is gay. It's James Whale is gay.
Yeah, you're thinking.
They were all gay.
Yeah. We also had the famous picture Mom and Dad, which caused an absolute uproar, specifically because it spoke like almost exclusively about what goes on behind closed doors with the nuclear Christian family. And it literally has a scene. I watched it earlier. It talks about contraceptives, and it also talks about, it shows the full birthing process of a baby.
What's
dilation,
it's a little rubber
everything.
sheath you can put over your husband's penis
Yes.
and don't get pregnant. You fucking what? You know, you're standing there with your 10 kids.
Yeah. They literally have a metal pole on a table, and they show like the rubber, like the
it's made out of like a
condom going down
lamb's
on it.
stomach. It's like an
it's
old school 2 inches
crazy.
thick.
Yeah. It was
Jesus.
nuts.
Not even latex.
And like
it's like
people,
lamb skin or something.
people were like horrified to see these things, and yet like this is a seamless part of life. The birthing process, and yet people were fucking horrified to look at it.
Well, I think because
They
like
couldn't
kind of
believe
up
it.
until that point, people were very like, I don't want to say like naive, but people were very like sheltered. I
The
think because
stork
it's like,
comes with the baby.
well, yeah, because
Yeah.
it's like the close, like the thing you would remember from being a baby is like when you're born, and it's like your parents aren't going to be like, so like especially in like
You
the
came out of my
40s.
vag.
But exactly, it's like the parents aren't going to be like, so your father ejaculated into my stomach, and then I had you, and then you came out of my vagina. You know, it's like they're like that kind of, even still to this day, that kind of like level of like explicit detail people still kind of consider inappropriate, and I'm like, no, because then kids are like confused about their bodies and don't fucking understand why things are the way they are.
I totally agree with that. I think the more you
we should exploit children.
The more that's down
Child
a dark
labor,
path. The more you sort of censor these types of things, the more clouded a judgment becomes at a younger age.
And you get shame.
And you become almost like freaked out and ashamed of your own. Like you turn yourself into Ray Fiennes from Red Dragon. Like I mean, fuck. You had
I've never even met a blind girl.
We had this is now like kind of, I want to say the 40s kind of era, because you had the illegal film distributors who were independent from the mainstream Hollywood, you know, esophagus. That
You got
it
any
was.
Todd Browning in the back of your car? You know,
They were they called themselves famously the 40 Thieves, and they rented out independent movie theaters. They rented out ghettos. They built out their own like. No, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me?
I don't know if the whole thing closed or what.
Yeah, the whole thing closed. I don't fucking believe this. I do not fucking believe this. Remind me later. Fucking prick. Oh no, it's still recording. Great.
Okay, well, leave that in. I don't care. Leave that in. Oh my god.
So as I was fucking saying before, I was so rudely interrupted by fucking Adobe, you know, go fuck yourselves, deep fucking enemies of the pod. Thank you.
They fucked up 2 entire podcasts.
Two
for us.
podcasts.
Yeah.
2.
We had to re-record our fucking our symbolism and horror episode.
Yeah.
We had to re-record the first like half hour of that.
If you ever hear us like super pissed off at the beginning, it's because we just recorded again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure at the start of our symbolism and horror, you can hear us like. Just like very clearly.
Okay, sorry. So this is where you start to see the sort of rebellious side of
Yes, I do.
girl. So like the like I want to say like you're moving between like the 50s and 60s, so you're sort of like seeing the more rebellious side of like the working class citizen looking for more entertainment, more you know, better side to things. Like it shows the true side of Americans, and like it really just of Americans, because kind of America was kind of only the biggest kind of mainstream
America's
media
trash.
kind of thing.
And well, yeah, we finally start to get the kind of switch up of like who our heroes are, or like they're not even being a hero. You know, it's the idea of kind of having the quote unquote like anti-hero. So we have movies like Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, where it's like female leads kind of like just kicking dicks in.
Yeah.
We get things like Straw Dogs. We get like Last House on the Left. I suppose they're all kind of like a couple of years later, but it's like kind of through these little movements that we get kind of where we are today. I mean, look at all of our look at who's in cinema now. All of our heroes are like ultra violent, like they're not so like badass or anything like that. See, that's your first reference for ultraviolence. Mine would be fully just Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It was what I did think. I just want to say that.
Is Lana Del Rey a Republican or what?
I don't know.
Because she gives me major Republican vibes.
So anyway, the government kind of fought back at this point, and before showings of literally anything on the TV, they would have these kind of like almost kind of what's those things?
It's like an MPA rating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They would have these things saying like, if you notice this on the streets, or if you see this in a back alley, or blah 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 blah.
That's not an MPA
you would
rating.
literally see things for notify the police, write letters, and they had this thing called obscenity leads to depravity. They had this
art imitating
whole
life
thing.
and life imitating
Exactly.
art, all that kind of stuff.
They had this whole kind of monopoly on such like stupid mundane things nowadays, at least from what we consider, of like a man and a woman sleeping in the same bed together, or a toilet in a video, or
Cher was the first woman to show her belly button on television ever, and that was like the mid 70s,
and
which
that was
is
like super
crazy.
controversial
For real. Or it's like even I think on who was it? I Love Lucy, her and Desi Arnaz were like the first couple to be shown sleeping in a bed together on television, just sleeping next to each other, like fully clothed.
Yeah.
Versus the like, I know it's not like that in WandaVision. I don't know why I totally thought, but we've seen like that trope before where it's like,
no, it does. It happens in
where they
WandaVision.
sleep in the separate beds. Yeah, and then like they go ahead like a decade and they yeah. We get to see stuff like that, and it's like sex even within marriage is viewed as like a sin. You know what I mean?
Or something to be kind of hushed up about.
Yeah.
You like oh, it doesn't happen.
We
you
don't
know.
have sex.
Yeah.
We've never had sex.
It got so popular, this kind of wave of like self-expression and things like that, that Hollywood studios had to begin rethinking their approach, because this is post Hays Code now. This would be like what's that kind of MPAA rating?
Yeah, the
thing?
MPAA rating, which is basically like they're like rated 15 for violence, or rated R for intense horror, or sexual images, or whatever it is. And we still get them ahead of movies.
We do.
They also aren't law though. Like
yeah,
if
they're more like guidelines.
Well, it is. It's like if I, as a 12-year-old, wanted to go see an 18s movie, I can legally do that, because it's not illegal. It's just like a weird moral guideline, you know. But also, I never actually understood the like life imitating art thing, because it's like humans are like, yeah, we're still violent, but we're at our arguably least violent.
Yes.
Now, I
true.
mean, we don't kill. Well, I suppose like people still get killed over their religion, but like that's not widely accepted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wars aren't super common now.
They're not normalized or encouraged.
We don't have gladiator fights and shit like that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like human history has been like as violent as it's ever been up until kind of now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we also kind of get, I think, where the big switch between the 60s and 70s, where with the 60s things are starting to kind of like poke at society and be like, how does okay, like where can we go? What are our confines? Versus when we get to the 70s, where we get like Vietnam, I think, is what the big switch is.
Yeah.
Because people are seeing these images on television and it's not part of the movies. It's just documentation of what's happening in real life. And Tom Savini himself said he fought in Vietnam. I don't know if he actually fought. I think he was a medic or something like that, or a photographer, because he used a lot of real life gore as reference images for the movies that he would go on to make. Fucking love Tom Savini, but it's like, I think that's why
Deep friend of the
deep in
pod.
my ass, Tom. But I think even still, Tom Savini is still so hot. But like, I think that's why Tom Savini is kind of like stand out to me, because it's not just like it never seems just like stupid gore for gore's sake. It's like, it's supposed to kind of affect you, or it's supposed to kind of like make you feel some kind of way, because he's like seen that firsthand, you know. Even though the technique might be just filling a fake head with like bananas and blood and whatever the fuck is on craft service, and then just shooting it with a shotgun, you know. I mean, that kill of him in Maniac is fucking great. Where what's his name again? I forget the actor in Maniac, but like just jumps up on the hood and just shoots the head and just explodes. It's so good. But also, like, those kind of movies are like prime example of what I think like is the slight differentiation between exploitation movies and B movies. You know, I think things like Maniac, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, Clockwork Orange, things like that are just so kind of overwhelmingly violent. Yeah, I think like those things are like super necessary for us to have cinema the way we do now.
Yeah.
You know, like we can have like look at Game of Thrones, like that's on television, that's ultra violent, you know.
Yeah.
I think the first scene I ever saw of Game of Thrones was Daenerys' brother getting the gold poured over his head.
Yes.
And I was like, fuck, like that's so
I
good.
want my crown.
I actually did that for art. We had to do a Game of Thrones inspired thing, and that was the only scene from Game of Thrones I had seen.
You had
So
a
I
reference.
did. Yeah, that was my only reference for Game of Thrones. And I drew Carrie, but with molten gold instead of blood.
Oh.
Thanks, Exploitation.
Our
A-okay?
kitty wants some attention. Come on, Jonesy. That's what's going to get you killed in Alien. Yeah, so like the graphic films and things like that only led to Hollywood having to accept that their audience was changing. I mean, they were practically losing money at this point.
Well, yeah,
because
people are going to make what they want to see.
refusing to move on. So they had developed film noir and not ultra violence, but more violent acts and things like that.
Realistic
Because
violence.
like they still had to thinly veil disguises of like nudity, sexual undertones, violence and things like that. And even like if someone was getting shot in a film noir, there's no blood, there's no entry wound. It's just
somebody
the bang
grabbing
of
their
the gun
stomach.
and someone grabbing their
Yeah.
stomach. So like because of third rate, like almost semi pornographic exploitation advocates, like advocates for morality, like they lost their foothold.
I would
in
almost
the
say
masses.
straight up pornographic.
Oh,
It's
they-
like a
they
lot of these movies are
was-
just porn with like an
With-
hour and a half of extra shit cut in.
Yeah.
So that, but seriously, so that
Yeah.
you can like release it as a full
Yeah.
movie, you know?
Yeah, so I mean, like at this
Smart.
time you have B movies developing, like Ed Wood, his Plan 9 from Outer Space, which was
We get
literally
vampire and
the
stuff.
most convoluted thought process of a film I've probably ever come across, which is aliens want to take over the Earth, but they're just bringing back the dead to take over that. So that the aliens
See, I
have
think
to
with
get
Ed
rid of
Wood,
that.
it's like I don't think Ed Wood would have been remembered as he was if he was better.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
True.
I think Ed Wood is kind of like the
This would be a quintessential B movie that I would like fully.
for real.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
think
Ed Wood
Ed
was
Wood
sort of
is
just
kind
kind
of
of
the
known for that kind of thing, really.
Oh yeah, like it's quote unquote trash, even though like
Camp.
I love it. You know, we have fucking Bela Lugosi in some of those movies. You know, we have
we
Vampira.
have Vincent Price, all of them.
So I think Ed Wood is kind of the like spiritual like predecessor or spiritual grandfather of like somebody like John Waters.
Absolutely.
I think those two are like like very, very directly related. Like they came from like the same womb. You know what I mean? It's like what Ed Wood is for his time, John Waters is for his time.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think what's that John Waters quote of in order to understand bad taste, one must have very, very good taste. There's such a good thing, or there's such a thing as good bad taste and bad taste. You know, and it's like kind of learning what the like difference between those two is like, I don't know, maybe not so important. You know what I mean? I think like even bad shit is still good.
It's still good, and it can still
it's almost the worse the better.
It can still be appreciated for what it is.
Yeah.
Because there was like, again, I keep thinking to like what Susan Sontag says about how camp can be interpreted in so many different ways, is the fact that even if something is just fucking terrible, there was love put behind it, there was effort, there was energy, there's intelligence behind it.
It's almost more enjoyable because you tried to play it straight.
Exactly.
And it came. I think like B movies. I think that's
like,
kind of
like,
what
you
separates
have what
B
Attack
movies
of the Killer
from...
Tomatoes. I mean,
yeah. Well, I don't think anybody ever thought like, yo, this is going to be a legit horror movie. You know?
Oh no, but they would look at it and they were like, that was intentionally made to be an honorary B movie plot.
Yeah, like it's wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like
Yeah.
they very much so like know where they are.
Yeah.
But I think like what for me differentiates camp from. Are you just gonna put your butthole in there? No.
I'm gonna stick my butthole on this iPad and then I'm gonna watch my shit.
I think what
This cat,
differentiates like B movies and kind of exploitation and grindhouse, all that kind of stuff for me is like B movies have that sense of camp,
Yes.
whereas like grindhouse and
Just go
exploitation
for the
movies.
absolute gore factor.
Yeah, you know, it's like
Yeah.
we're gonna see a lady get her fucking tits cut off and she's gonna get raped at the same time, and then she's gonna come back at the end of the movie and cut all the dicks off and light them all on fire.
Yeah.
You know, very I spit on your grave. But I don't think I would consider
I was
those.
gonna come to that.
Yeah, I don't think I could consider those movies B movies.
No.
B movie kind of explicitly implies to me more lightheartedness, even if
a
it's
camp
not
factor to
lighthearted.
it,
Yeah.
exactly. I would definitely think that if you're looking at the how do I want to say it? If you're looking at the late 60s, early 70s, this is where I would denote a demarcation between where camp led B movies versus where exploitation led their movies.
Oh, yeah.
So, for example, the mainstream had to take the new form in films like Psycho, Anatomy of a Murder, specifically because they had a code that they had to follow.
Psycho being an independent movie. I don't know if like lots of people like know. Well, I know lots of people know that, but I don't know how like commonly known that is. You know, that movie could have been in color, but it was cheaper to make it in black and white because Alfred Hitchcock pretty much made that movie exclusively on his own dime.
Yeah,
you know?
Because with these types of films going mainstream, people began to lose interest in typical B movies and things like that.
Yeah.
So what you had was exploitation and B movies became second billing because of competition with intelligent narratives. So like things like Hitchcock's Psycho, The Birds, all of that.
Yeah. Well, you're reaching a wider audience. It's like an older audience doesn't necessarily. And when I say older audience, I mean kind of 50s, 60s, and 70s, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Typically don't really want to watch girls with their tits out with knives, you know? But it's like,
true.
They still want a thrill, so it's like the equivalent to that would be, like a Psycho or, well, I don't know, because I feel like Psycho is like this weird kind of like marker in the film, like, kind of industry overall. But then I think like I think kind of within a year or two of each other, we get like Peeping Tom, you know what I mean? Which I think
Peeping Tom actually came first.
Well, there you go.
Then...
But that guy never ever worked again because people thought that the movie was trash.
Yeah.
And then Alfred Hitchcock comes along like the year after or a year after that, and is kind of hailed as like people for some reason say like, well, this is art, and that's just
trash.
Garbage.
Yeah.
That's garbage, which to me is crazy.
Yeah.
That like something like Blood Feast or something like Peeping Tom isn't as highly revered or as highly recognized as being as influential as something like Psycho.
Yeah.
Because those to me are more influential because we actually see more of their direct, like we see blood, you know?
Yeah, I can
it's like there actually is barely any blood at all in Psycho.
Yeah, and plus, of course, like in Psycho, of course, there's an intelligent narrative to it. and there's also like double entendres on top of entendres in that film. But you also you never do see a cut, a stab, or anything like that. It's all what's implied in your head. Exactly.
But Blood Feast, we get to see a lady get her fucking tongue ripped out.
Yeah.
We get to see it all.
Yeah.
You know, or Peeping Tom, it's like they're
Okay, sorry, just to interrupt you, but if you hear any more purring, it's the asshole cat just again walking by the microphone.
I don't think it's getting picked up.
Just in case.
But then we see things like with Peeping Tom, it's like that's like starting to imply sexual violence, because he very much so uses the third tripod on the camera stand as like
as his
phallus,
weapon. Yeah.
You know, and he wants the women to like exactly. It's like he wants the women to like see themselves as they die. And, you know, and that to me is where we start to get the break off between B movies and exploitation movie.
Yes.
Because these women are being exploited.
Yeah.
You know, which I love.
You had like again, like this is where, like you said, there's a demarcation, there's a fork in the road where we diverged down one path and we chose the titties less trampled on. Like
the titties less trampled on. I love that so much.
We had excellent actors. We had the latest technology available to the film industry for the mainstream. However, when you get to exploitative genres from here on out, you sort of see, I don't want to say a decline in execution. However, there is quite a lot, like you just said, there is this kind of like the nudity and the violence came first and then the story came after.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think the kind of, in my opinion, the sole reason for that, and also like this episode, like I wanted to like kind of approach this as like very conversational and very kind of like off the top of the head. So like, don't come for me if I have like dates wrong and shit like that.
It is
but I
what
think
it is,
like,
girl.
but I think like the reason that kind of stuff happened, at least in my mind, is because we start to get kind of the rise of the independent film.
Yeah.
So we get people being able to kind of churn movies out a lot faster on a lower budget,
usually shorter in
usually black and white up until this point, because black and white film is cheaper. So that's kind of where we start to get things that kind of birth like huge movements, like Night of the Living Dead, like Psycho, like
which
like
Night of the
Peeping Tom,
Living
stuff
Dead
like that,
famously was a B movie. It was
part
of a double feature.
The
it
opening,
was the second billing.
To kind of, excuse my like phrasing, to kind of at the time like a blaxploitation movie.
Yeah.
I think
that's,
like
that's the term.
No, I know, but I forget like the actual title of the movie. And that drew in like huge amounts of black audiences and stuff like that. And
there
was
like, Samson. You have Blackula. You
Scream,
have,
Blackula Scream. It's so good. We get the rise of Pam Grier and stuff.
Pam Grier, yeah, exactly.
Foxy Brown.
I actually just want to play this. I think this is a really good time for me to play this. I think it's a good idea. Just
Are you gonna play this in the middle of the thing?
I think it's a good idea because this is the time where you actually start to see double features showing up in cinemas, and I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Shock can you stand? Free $2,000 cash if you should die from fright while watching Women and Bloody Terror and Night of Bloody Horror.
So, like, you had the introduction of double features, and this is where the term B movie does come from, because it got B listing on the cinema with usually the main product which was being advertised.
Yeah.
So what they did was at this time, and this is like quintessential John Waters era.
We get to see Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble. We get to see that scene where it's like, who wants to die for art? And the guy stands up and he's like, I do. And Divine just shoots him.
Yeah.
Or we get to see Divine eating pieces of dog shit in fucking Pink Flamingos, you know? Like, I can't imagine walking...
am Divine.
You stand convicted of assholism. But like,
condone cannibalism.
I can't imagine walking into a cinema now and seeing Pink Flamingos or something like Pink Flamingos. I mean, like, Divine in that movie sucks her, like, quote-unquote son's dick in that movie. We get to see a chicken in between two people, like, having rough sex.
Yeah.
This chicken is getting thrown around. Jealous. And like, for like the end, spoiler alert, when it's like Divine's birthday party and everybody's kind of like doing their like presentation, we get to see a dude just spread his ass And I'm like, they just had this like
Yeah.
in cinemas. I think like the movie nights were kind of hosted like as like a see if you can like take this, you know, or like the Cockettes
Yeah.
and stuff like that. They used to like host movie nights and stuff like that. But just I can't imagine like the shock of like when John Waters kind of like hits the scene,
Yes.
you know.
I think you see this is the era like you're moving into like mid 60s early 70s now where you have a complete rejection of morality. You have like just like a complete refusal to accept the societal norms of the time.
Oh yeah, it's
You have
counterculture.
crazy
Counterculture
plots,
is huge.
scenes, carnal violence. Was kind of its main weapon against Hollywood. The more depraved and the more disgusting, the better, because it garnered so much of a response that it took the eyes off of what Hollywood was trying to sell you, which
Yeah.
was like, you know, Dorothy going down the yellow brick road, you know, like, you know, all of these meet me
Now
in
it's
St. Louis, all
Dorothy
of
and
these.
Toto gets shot in the head, and Dorothy's
Yeah.
parents fucking come back and murder her who did it. You
Yeah.
know, we get like Last House on the Left
Yeah.
and Straw Dogs, which kind of are in my head kind of like connected, but it's like it's the very small definition or the very small differentiation between Last House on the Left, which is more over
Wes
the top.
Craven,
Wes
iconic,
Craven,
rest in peace, love
Daddy
you.
Craven. It was only his birthday actually the other day.
Happy birthday, babe.
And then with like Straw Dogs, that's more like realistic. So I see like very definitely one of them being
Yes.
subject matter kind of the same, and one being B movie, one being more exploitation. You know,
Yeah.
and I think like Last House on the Left is harder to watch because it's like there's
And
a
Spit
rape
on Your
scene.
Grave was actually sort of the same.
I know it is.
time
It's like
frame,
this is
isn't
where we
it?
start to get
Yeah.
these like rape revenge fantasies, you
Mhm.
know, and it's kind of at the start of when rape is starting to become like a discussion as opposed to just something that happens to women,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, but like I spit on your grave. Fucking Last House on the Left. There's a rape scene in that movie that's like 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's like so long.
It is.
And they, like,
incredibly
gut a girl. They,
hard
like,
to
cut her the
watch.
fuck
it
open.
really is.
But I think Wes Craven. I don't think Wes Craven actually gets enough credit because
Yeah.
like it kind of threw out like from here we got kind of The Hills of Eyes, and then we get like Shocker, and like he has some kind of rocky shit, but then like even with Scream, that's a huge conversation on like does art imitate
Counterculture,
violence.
Everything.
We even get that thing where it's like horror movies don't create psychos, they make psychos more creative.
Yeah.
You know, it's like people have been violent forever, even more so than today.
Yeah.
You know, it's harder to be violent nowadays, and God knows I've tried. Just can't punch a baby anymore the same way you used to be able
You
to.
can't put a baby in a blender.
Nah.
So this is definitely the era where you have a huge change up in society. You have obviously, of course, the civil rights movement. You have marriage equality. When I say marriage equality, I mean like the emancipation of women, the end of the class system, the pill.
Marriage equality means it all.
Well, you know what I mean. You have sexual revolution. You have the popularity of psychotropic drugs. You have legalization in part in some places for marijuana. You have Woodstock. You have all of this type of thing where it's sort of heavily, really kind of pushed counterculture into the mainstream and forced old ideas really kind of, they were booted out the door at this point. And this is where exploitative, like boundaries are really pushed, because this is where Grindhouse became really big.
We get road movies. We
Yes.
get people getting drawn in
what's
quarter. We
it?
get
Road
Mad
Warriors.
Max and
You have
stuff.
Mad Max.
Yeah.
You have, and these are all B movies as well.
Oh,
you
for
have
sure.
what was it? Freedom Rider or not? No, Easy Rider.
Yeah.
All of them were huge counterculture movements, but they were all still B movies.
And I think, like, again, none of this in my mind, because we'll never know, none of this in my mind would have happened. We wouldn't have gotten the counterculture revolution the same way we would have if things like the Hays Code and stuff like that weren't implemented. Because the Hays Code touched life so much more than just movies, you know?
Yes.
Like, you kind of... entertainment, literature, all that kind of stuff is kind of how you... I don't know, you get like the rules of the world,
Yes.
but like kind of subliminally in a way. But once those things are kind of like cut off, where it's like, no, we can't show sex, we can't show violence, we can't show drugs, we can't show sexual health, any of that kind of stuff. And then it's like, well, those are all the things that I'm now going to show because they haven't been available to us for 60 years. Which is why we get things like Mad Max and I Spit on Your Grave and fucking all those types of movies, you know, because people were so starved for it and people are just going to make what they want to see.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
I also think, like, not having violence in cinema makes, like, it worse because it's like people are seeing
violence on the news, Vietnam.
But like seeing
everything.
that in a movie, it's kind of like
the Cold
it's
War.
a cathartic, like, let go release. You know, it's like
I think we actually explained that the last time we were talking about oh god, I actually think it was was it symbolism and horror, where
like school shootings would have happened a lot less if everybody was made to see Carrie in school. Let's just say, if I could see, like, you know, it's like everybody wanted to be Carrie, but some people just don't actually do it.
It's true. I think at this point, like, a younger audience was kind of like taking over moviegoers and freedom, you know, counterculture movements and things like that. They sparked a wave of like new plots and young protagonists.
So it starts to get kind of like teens being the main cast.
Yeah, you wanted to see more of fighting against kind of almost like, I want to say, like the Invisible Man kind of idea, where it's the birth of kind of these slasher films. And sorry, I should say, like, it was always gore first and then the slasher films sort of kind of came afterwards, but you started to see this thing where young people were taking over. It was not just some conservative couple who were being invaded by aliens or Dracula or things like that. It was more like, it's either this or it's a home invasion, or
like, even the idea of there being a teenager is still relatively new in this. We only get the term teenager kind of in the 50s and 60s, where it's like
oh girl, someone's phone.
I'm busy. It's my boss. But yeah, we kind of start to get the idea that, like, you don't just go from being a child and then go into being an adult. Because, you know, it's like,
there's a learning process there.
Exactly. You used to be able to work at like 13, 14. So it's like you could go from finishing primary school straight into work and never go into secondary and then just be considered an adult there. But then teenagers kind of being like, oh, well, I have a job, I have my own money, I can kind of do whatever, you know. And then just after that, we get the rise of home video, where like cinema is coming into the home. You don't have to
nasties.
You don't exactly have to get money off your parents to go see a movie that you might not be allowed into. One of your friends just has to have access to a tape, and you can watch it like a million times, you know. Again, where we kind of get into the video nasty thing, which to me is very, very English. It's a very English kind of prospect.
We spoke about this on actually our first SLAB topic, which was horror gone too far. We spoke about the history of how
you kids watching Raimi in there, you know.
Another famous B movie. You had obviously, like, it's very British, stiff upper lip conservative party, Margaret Thatcher type shit, where literally, like, any type of gory shit was, you could only find it in the back of someone's boot, or like you were getting arrested because
and it could be taken off you. You know, which is like, it is crazy to me, the idea that, like, shit like that was like illegal, but you could still hit your wife.
True. It's
you know
true.
what I mean?
You're
Violence
totally
was
right.
still super prevalent, but like, I couldn't watch fantastical violence. You know, I can't watch a giant fucking, some giant fucking animal fucking eat a bunch of teenagers and shit like that. But corporal punishment is still a thing in school.
Exactly.
You know, it's like rape is still not taken seriously. Rape is still just seen as kind of everyday life for women, and like up until that point, it was kind of exclusively seen that, like, rape was a thing that only happened to women.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Only kind of in the last, I don't want to say the last couple of years, because
I
that kind of like
5 years where we've really started to, like,
really make sure that like that is also spoken about. You know, because I also think that, like, people kind of considered it's like, oh well, it's only rape if it happens to a woman.
It's relevant to everybody.
Exactly. You know, and we get to see, again, all of this is reflected in movies. You know, that's why only recently we start to see men fully frontal naked in movies, whereas like for the last, let's say, like 100 years. Like,
well,
since the start of
I would
cinema,
definitely say 100 years, because like I said at the very beginning, like, you had women undressing down into, now it wasn't complete and total nudity.
Sometimes it's like women are
maybe kind of
painted
a
a
garter
colour.
belt,
Yeah.
or just like removing a t-shirt and the bra was still underneath, or
Yeah.
not even a bra, like a corset
Yeah.
was still underneath, and that was considered extreme nudity at the time.
Or the idea of like in the 70s, it's like no bra, big t-shirt.
Yeah.
You just see the titties underneath.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, which is like back in again. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. I think specifically because of like the war in Vietnam, nihilism sort of became the mainstream, and the philosophy of like I said earlier, like accepting universal virtues became outdated, and this led to the gore films, which, as we said before, were predecessors of slasher films, and i.e. Scream. So like this is the type of thing, like you mentioned actually earlier, where in the 70s and even into the very, like I would say late 70s, like 80, 81, you had all of these exploitation films which sort of took over the mainstream. You had blaxploitation, you had sexploitation, of course, you had like even weirder subgenres like mockbusters, you had Nazi-sploitation, which was kind of a weird
She-Wolf
like,
of the SS.
yeah,
shit like
you
that.
had like repressed, like I always got the ideas of like repressed sexuality, BDSM, nymphomania, all that kind of thing from the Nazi exploitation genre. Like you had the undead, you had werewolves, which seemed to be a weird kind of fetishization of like the masculine energy that came
I was
from
literally
a
just
uniform.
gonna say, like, yeah, kind of
you know?
werewolves. Yeah, for some reason we get to see a lot of Nazis and werewolves.
Yeah, it's kind of a
put
weird
together.
kind of
Well, it is. It's like
thing
it's
to
a
throw
super.
together.
Well, yeah, there wouldn't be any Nazi fucking witches. That's not very
That's
masculine.
true, yeah.
You know, but
Yeah.
like I think werewolves seem to be like the most masculine of
And it
monsters.
was hyper violent, and
Yeah.
it was always there was always this kind of sub theme of a weird kind of BDSM with it.
Oh yeah.
It was always very much the kind of sexy kind of fetishization of the uniform in a weird
Well, that's
way.
still huge today. I
Yeah.
think like we see kind of like I think like the. And not even in straight shit. I picture kind of like Nazi fetishization as very gay, where we get to see
Yes.
like leather daddy stuff, which
Exactly.
is just a leather Nazi
Exactly.
uniform,
Who's
basically.
the artist that
There's Tom of Finland.
Tom of Finland, yeah.
Is huge for, and like again, I don't think it's a pushing of like a, hey, can we be a Nazi? It's sexy. I
No,
think
it's just
like
it's the idea of a masculine energy
and the kind
coming
of
from
it
a
being
uniform.
the like it's wrong, like we shouldn't.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
Now
yeah.
put your fist in my ass. You know.
Of course, we also had sexploitation. Now, sexploitation is a very kind of strong subset genre of the 70s and the 80s, where like it would pretty much go like, let's find, I always think like Satan's Cheerleaders. That was a film. That was literally a film, and they just said this is kind of how the rough story would go. It would be, let's find a name, let's create a poster to go with that name,
Yeah.
and then it would be the story and the producers afterwards.
Vampire bitches from hell, you know.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think like my kind of like, if I was to like draw a picture of what I thought like 80s horror movies were like, it's chicks with big hair, big tits, and like naked
pom-poms.
with shoes on.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then it's weird when you watch a lot of these movies, they're very, very careful to not show blood and tits at the same time.
Yes.
So it's a naked woman being killed and then there's blood.
Yeah.
But it's kind of rare that we see like
You put
a
the
naked
connection
woman
together.
with blood all over. Because I
Yeah.
think people were kind of thinking like, okay, this might
ruin
give
my
people
erection.
yeah, or like this might give people some weird complexes by
Yeah.
having sex and violence be so
Intertwined.
exactly.
Yeah.
But then again, like you said, that's when we start to get into like BDSM and S&M and stuff like that, where people are kind of starting to have the bigger conversation where it's like, well, what if
Of
we had
course,
both
this
together, but what if
happens,
both
yeah.
people like wanted it, you know?
Yeah.
And then like speaking of like BDSM and sex and all that kind of stuff, we get stuff like Hellraiser, which I think are
Yes.
not so much an exploitation movie because it is a little bit more over the top and it is a little bit more grand.
Yeah.
But I do think Hellraiser is kind of a B movie. I think a lot of
True.
movies
I would
from the
agree.
80s are very, very B. Because I think like even though people look at
That's
80s
not
as
to
like a
say
decline.
that Clive Barker didn't put intelligence into the work, because he really did, and he put a lot of effort into that. And I mean, of course, I would view Hellraiser on the same platform as Freddy or Jason or
Yeah. Well, they're all tied.
Michael
You
Myers.
start to get. Again, that was my other example. They're all very much so tied, because it's like the women in those movies or the men in those movies get killed directly related to sin.
Yes.
It's where we start to get the don't have sex, don't do drugs,
The
don't
rules.
don't break the quote unquote moral rules or else you're gonna
Yeah.
die. Which kind of makes you look at these villains in a weird way, where you're like, are you like kind of the morality police, Michael? You killed your sister because she had a quick 27-second romp? No, 27 seconds includes going upstairs and getting at the front door.
undressed and then redressed.
He might as well have literally just lifted it up like this and
And
then
then
put it back down.
on.
I don't think they ever took clothes off. You know?
Yeah, I also think of like you said earlier, I Spit on Your Grave, Last House on the Left, and then I think of Day of the Woman, which was very much it was a feminist piece. I will give it that. However, it does rise to the status of cult fame because it was panned when it was viewed, but it was that sort of thing where it's sort of like the acting was fucking terrible in it.
Yeah.
But it did have a stronger message because it was the same thing. It was a revenge, a rape revenge story, and she basically took it upon herself to go down and hunt the men down, because they all went back to like their families and their everyday lives and their jobs and offices and things.
Yeah.
And but the acting was just fucking awful in that film. But it was very much a sexploitation film, because almost consistently was she naked throughout the entire thing for no reason. Like she wasn't getting out of a shower, she wasn't in bed, she wasn't having sex or this or that. She was just randomly naked cooking in one scene, and I was like, why?
Well, you can't have exploitation without somebody or something being exploited. You know,
It's true. We also have blaxploitation, and we kind of can't move on from B movies or anything like that without kind of speaking to this first.
Yeah.
Because I always think of
and it's a huge genre, kind of like in and of itself.
Even of itself, and it's sort of risen in fame to becoming very strong. I mean, Shaft is like started out as blaxploitation, but it's still running strong 20 years later.
Yeah, like we kind of, I think like blaxploitation, like kind of, there was a huge wave of it again in the 90s.
Fred Williamson, by the way.
We got a huge resurgence of blaxploitation in the 90s. And kind of done in a different way, also kind of made by like black teams and stuff like that. So it's like
it was trailblazing.
The exploitation and the blaxploitation seems less like shitty because
it
it's
does,
like actually done by another black person.
It gets like sort of almost reclaimed in a way, because
it is.
It
We
was
get
sort
things
of
like New
started
Jack
like
City
that.
and like
Foxy Brown,
Spike
Coffee,
Lee and all that kind of stuff.
Blackula.
Well, no, these are all like the 70s. I mean, like in the 90s, like even stuff like Blade. You know what I mean? Like Blade is huge, and also kind of never really gets the recognition as Blade was the first black superhero to get his own movie.
Which it fucking should.
Not Black Panther, because people were like, "Why did it take so long?" And it's like it didn't. You're just not doing your research.
And ironically, like you should also think like you could technically still call Black Panther blaxploitation in a way as well.
I mean, it's not really, because they're like it's like a celebration versus like a let's see what these black people do in black life. You know what I mean? Like even in like Blade, like Wesley Snipes is still very much so giving like kind of like, I don't want to say like black one-liners, but it's like
stereotypical.
They always bet on black, like that kind of shit, you know.
I would also like Pam Grier, really in a way kind of
the mother of like blaxploitation. Like she is like
Coffee,
one of my
Foxy
one of my
Brown.
favorite actresses. Like genuinely, I fucking love her in everything she's in. But then it's like, looking at Foxy Brown made in the 90s versus like the old Foxy Brown, where it's like the fro and the little like bandana like around the tits, but she's also like a detective. You know what I mean? Like just seeing them like 20 years apart is crazy. But oh god damn it, Foxy Brown is so good. Like Tarantino's Foxy Brown, I fucking love it.
It really is.
Across 100.
And also the Fred Williamson, when he was doing sort of his armistice, I mean, he was in Blackula, he did the thing with two heads where he was literally had a white man's head grafted onto his body along with his own head.
The story of Blackula is great though.
Yeah,
it challenged Dracula on the slave ships, and that's how he became a vampire. I love that.
I think also like the like those endings where like your man is like I think it's like the two cops or something like that, and they're just holding their flashlights, and then the crowd of like turned people who
Yeah.
are, the crowd of black people who are turned into part vampires, who are afraid of the cops flashlight.
Yeah.
It's just so striking to me. It's crazy because like they're just cowering into the shadows again, and it's meant to be like, oh, that just vampires afraid of the light, but it's very clear what that's insinuating.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's just really kind of a strong message, and I think like we would be remiss if we didn't talk about blaxploitation and how they became quintessential B movies towards the end. Is kind of important. Yeah.
Well, again, it's like I think like I don't know why, but there's like kind of a weird misconception that like like minorities aren't like hugely important in like into these kind of cultures and subcultures and stuff, you know. Like we said, it's like the reason why Night of the Living Dead became so big was because it was like paired with like a quote unquote black movie, and because like again like that movie just happened to be kind of super pivotal by seeing a black man be the hero.
Yeah.
You know, and then also like at the same time having him die at the end as our hero, which is not super common, you know. Yeah, I think like yeah, the idea of like an exploitation movie, there has to be some kind of sense that you're
Taking
already an
advantage.
exploited
Yeah.
or an already exploited person. That's kind of like where it like kind of comes from, I guess, you know. Yeah, goddamn Pam Grier.
You're amazing.
I
Love you.
fucking love Pam Grier.
Yeah, I mean, like, you also have, like, the B movies of that as well, like, literal, like, I mean, Jaws. You have the Jaws of... No, like, Jaws, and then a year later, the Jaws of Death.
Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
was
And then we get
a
like Orca
quintessential-
and stuff like that. I actually
You have
vouch for-
Piranha,
Yeah.
which was arguably, Steven Spielberg said that is the best knockoff of his film that he said he had ever seen.
Well,
And I
it's different
totally agree
enough,
with
but
him.
it's good. It's,
Yeah.
But it isn't. Do you know
Then
what
you
I mean?
also have Star Crash, which is a B movie knockoff of Star Wars. I just wanted
Yeah.
to get that in there.
Well, see, I think I saw a thing. Shout out to No Playing Podcast. I really like their kind of point of view on stuff. They were saying like if Dune had come out, like if David Lynch's Dune had come out before Star Wars, or if Jodorowsky was able to make his Dune before Star Wars came out, sci-fi and all that kind of shit would be so different.
Yeah.
But because Star Wars came first, that was kind of the
go off
basis.
of,
Yeah. But I'm like, imagine if we had gotten Jodorowsky's Dune with like Salvador Dali like starring in it and fucking Giger like designing everything, you know, fresh off of Alien. That would have been crazy.
It would have been hot.
Watch that documentary, Jodorowsky's Dune. It's really, really good. We get to see everything that we would have gone. But like, I think, what is it, like Salvador Dali was getting paid like $1 million a day or something to
Gross.
film something crazy like that.
Gross. Can't deal. So, before we kind of wrap this up, I guess, we have a selection of 5 movies that we want you to at least give a go, think over, mill it up, whatever you want to hear.
As per usual.
As per usual. And we've selected 5 great, fantastic B movies that we would love you to check out. So by all means, take a handful, take a listen, take a look. So my first selection here was Brain Dead, by the Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson.
I kick ass for the Lord. I love it.
Who also did Bad Taste, by the way, which is a
Oh,
fucked up movie.
The cover
Love
for Bad
that.
Taste,
Scared the
was
shit out
obsessed
of me
with.
when I was younger.
But the cover for Bad Taste is just that potato being like,
Yeah.
you know, it's so good.
This film is also known as Dead Alive in some places.
that's what I know it
So definitely, if you can't find Brain Dead, look for Dead Alive, because that's its also title.
The full thing is on YouTube, by the way.
So the plot is overprotective mother Vera Cosgrove spying on her grown-ass son Lionel as he visits the zoo with the lovely Paquita. Is accidentally bitten by the fearsome Sumatran rat monkey. When the bite turns his beloved mother into a zombie, Lionel tries to keep her locked up safely in the basement.
that scene where they're all eating the custard is so
Gross.
good. It's so good.
When he like
she picks it up and there's the earring in it.
this like she like re-ingests her into her fanny.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
what?
Yeah, the part, it's like where her like spoiler alert, like where her ear falls off and she picks it up in her own custard and she pulls out the earring.
Gross.
Oh. Or she eats the dog and she pulls out the tail. It's
Oh.
so good.
Or the little baby.
Your mother
thing.
ate my dog. Not all of it.
What do you got for me?
So one of mine is John Waters' 1972 classic gay mecha. Filthy. So we have Pink Flamingos. I feel like the
Gorge.
kind of quintessential Divine movie.
Yeah.
So Wikipedia's like blurb for this actually makes me scream. I probably won't scream reading it, but no. A bizarre fat woman, played by Divine, and her misfit family compete with a Baltimore couple to be named the filthiest people alive.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this movie it's just camp as you like, but it's also violent, it's also very sexual, and it's also
Very
just
gross.
disgusting. Yeah. Spoiler alert, trigger warning, shit eating. Emma once said to me and Lena, we were sitting at a table having a couple of drinks, and she goes, was there a movie where a drag queen ate a piece of dog shit? And then we showed her Pink Flamingos. She didn't believe us that it was real. I was like, no, look, that dog just took a shit. She picked it up
And ate it.
and ate it.
So my third pick is the fucking I cannot think about this. This film came out 2 years after the It miniseries, so it's just it comes. Sorry, not the It miniseries, the It novel itself. So like, if you're gonna copy King, do it well. And
Was
this
it like
is
84?
B movie. Yeah,
Is it 84?
This is B movie like classic.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I have Killer Clowns with a K from outer space.
Uh-huh.
When teenagers Mike and Debbie see a comet crash outside their sleepy small town, they investigate and discover a pack of murderous aliens who look very much like circus clowns. And this movie, can I just say, I was obsessed with this movie when I was younger. It's also currently on Netflix, by the way.
I was going to say,
And
yeah,
it's
on Netflix.
amazing. It is fucking, like you said, it's camp as you like. It's hilarious. The clowns kill people in the most inventive
Cotton
fucking ways
candy,
possible.
shadow puppets.
Shadow puppets, popcorn guns.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, it's just crazy. They turn a police chief into a puppet, a literal puppet.
I
It's
think
great.
if you want to like, I mean, this is probably like a bad recommendation on our like exploitation / B movie / grindhouse episode, but this might be like a good like first one to like show like maybe like your kid if they're like 10 or
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
because it's dumb, but like
Yeah, it's dumb as
it's
fuck.
still a horror movie. It's
And the
funny.
acting is mediocre to say the best, and
It's very
questionable at the worst.
So my second, actually, wait, I want to just check something real quick if I'm right or wrong.
You're right or wrong. Get the receipts, girl.
No, it's just not in it. Sorry, I thought somebody was in that. So my second choice is Trauma's The Toxic Avenger. Oh my god, I fucking love this movie. I highly recommend, if any of you have never heard of Trauma, look them up. They're kind of like the like a distribution / production company, but like for all of these type of movies. So we have The Toxic Avenger, where a 98-pound nerd from New Jersey lands in a vat of toxic waste and becomes a benevolent monster. But he's actually a real sweetheart. He's a really, really sweet. And
Didn't you just say that like he crushes the head?
no,
of a child
he doesn't
in a
crush the
car?
head. The villains do.
Ah, right.
He wears a tutu. Oh no, seriously, I would 100% marry Toxie. Like he's gorgeous.
Toxic.
Yeah. There's a scene he comes home from all that shit happening to him, and he gets in the bath and he starts like sizzling and like bubbling and boiling and all this kind of shit. And his mom is like, he's finally gone through puberty. But 1984, The Toxic Avenger. I fucking love this movie. But there's like a kids cartoon for that and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a couple of movies, and it's also being remade / rebooted this year, which actually kind of pisses me off, because I'm like, the entire point of Trauma movies is that you make them for like £6 and that they look awful. Like, you don't make a trauma movie with the intent of it looking good
Yeah.
or
True.
being written well, but I fucking love them. It was made for like $800,000, and or no, it was made for $500,000 and made only $800,000 in its initial release.
It made something.
But it's a classic. Like,
Yeah.
the Toxic Avenger is very definitely a classic.
Yeah.
I'd love to have a trauma week or something like that on this.
You want that to happen. I know you do.
Well, seriously, there's like there is a lot. They do make horror movies and stuff too, which are equally as awful.
They make horror movies too.
But they're good. Yeah, Poultrygeist.
Poultrygeist.
Night of the Chicken Dead.
Oh my god.
You'd love it.
Okay, what do you got as the last one? What's our last pick?
Oh fucking no.
You
Oh yeah.
know?
Plan 9 from Outer Space. Ed Wood, 1959. I would say classic.
Yeah.
Like if
When
you,
I think of
if
Ed
you
Wood,
know,
I
you
think
know.
of this film.
Oh yeah, this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
like the Ed Wood movie for me. So aliens, Eros and Tana, arrive on Earth and try to raise the dead in hopes of overtaking the planet, while the military tries to keep the aliens' activities a secret. And this movie stars Bela Lugosi as, quote, old man, and Vampira as
Frequent collaborator.
Vampira. Well, her real name, what is it again? Freaking Mila Nurmi. Oh my god, this woman is stunning. Like, proto-goth, like Lily Munster, Elvira, like
Morticia Addams
tiny
type thing.
exactly,
Yeah.
tiny little wasp waist, hairline shaven back, the eyebrows they're Divine's eyebrows. They literally are the eyebrows that go straight up and across, and the long nails, and it's so good.
And the way she walks everywhere is like, yes.
Yeah, she to me is like just one of the most like kind of iconic like horror figures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's been parodied a million times, and yeah, Morticia. I mean, she's like partially based off Morticia, and
Yes.
fucking Elvira is partially based off of her.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Elvira is not based on Morticia, or Elvira is based on Vampira, who is
Yeah.
based on Morticia, who is based on Lily.
The
No,
Munsters.
Lily Munster is based on Morticia. She came after the fact. But yeah, Plan from Outer Nine. Plan 9 from Outer Space. Ed
Jeez,
Wood.
get it right.
Check it out.
So yeah, that was B movies and exploitation in film.
Do you
in
feel
horror.
exploited?
Do you feel tainted? In some
Well, I'm
way?
sitting here with my fucking breasts out and blood all over me, so yeah.
Well, good. Then it worked.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
excellent, and it's cheap blood too, so that works really
Pour
well.
another pint of blood on my ass. Yeah.
And then bite it.
So yeah, next month,
We don't have a theme for. Oh my god!
I love that.
Wow. What's next month, Jonesy? You tell us. You got nothing to say now.
Okay, now
huh?
you're underperforming.
Wow.
Oh, that was good.
That was screechy as fuck. Who you trying to be? A xenomorph? Oh, got you. Yeah.
Speaking of xenomorphs, just really quickly before we go, they used the Xeno like scream in the new American Horror Story trailer.
Ooh.
Don't act like yeah, okay. Like, don't try and use iconic fucking movie sounds and like,
Without
pass
us
them off as wrong.
noticing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But next month, we don't have a theme, and it's kind of a free-for-all, so we're going to kind of do what we want week to week until... Well, no, it's like...
And fuck what you want to hear.
But yeah, seriously, I think... seriously, fuck off. Do you think I fucking care about your fucking thing? No, but next month, we're just going to kind of see where we go. And,
We're going to let our brains float around for a bit.
uh-huh.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
So that was the
The
slab.
We
I
didn't
love
even...
it.
Did we even do it?
Were we
An intro
probe
at the start?
and postulate? Well, I said it. You didn't. You failed at your job. Wow.
Whatever. No, I said pro postulate and plug in your fucking iPad.
Where we probe, prod, and postulate a topic of your selection. So
Sometimes.
sometimes. So be sure to let us know what you think. Any comments, criticisms, critiques. If you've got criticisms, fuck off.
The budget for this was only 60 grand.
Wow.
Sorry, that's crazy.
Girl. So make sure to like, subscribe, comment below if you want us to talk about a topic that you'd like to hear or a movie you'd love us to retrospect. Please sound off in the comments below. Don't forget to follow us on our official Instagram page at They're Here Podcast for some more daily updated content.
Yes. I don't know why. Like, my favorite thing is to see that go real quiet. And then there's a spike. So yeah, unpleasant dreams.
And whatnot.
I'm going to go smoke a cigarette.
Or is it a J? It's usually a J, no? We go for J now, yeah?
No, I'm going to work.